If you own a small business, your local newspaper or news station wants to give you free PR like this. In a moment, I'll tell you exactly why reporters and journalists are chomping at the bit to share your event, story, or newsworthy tip. But first, we have to address a common misconception, and that is the idea that it is hard or cumbersome to get the attention of a reporter so that your small business can get some free PR and can be featured in the news without spending a dime on advertising. It's not, and take it from someone who has over 15 years of marketing experience. It has never been easier to approach your local media outlets and to get some free PR. So let me show you how in this video. I'm dividing this video into two parts. The first part of the video, we're going to talk about how to physically reach out, like where do you go to reach out to your local media news outlets. And trust me, I need to include this because in the last couple of years, this has changed pretty drastically. And then the second part of the video, I'm going to share some tips that I have for how you can increase your probability of getting your event, your newsworthy tip, or your story or idea picked up so that you can get the free PR. So you'll want to stick around to the end because that really is the important part, right? How to reach out to local news outlets. First things first, hit that subscribe button. I recommend that you start by listing out all of the local media outlets within your geographic area that you are interested in sending your event, your newsworthy tip, or your story idea to. Now, what this looks like is you want to think about not just local newspapers and local news stations, but also magazines or perhaps local blogs that people go to in order to receive their information. Basically, you just want to open up a Word document on your laptop, do a brain dump, list them all out, and leave enough space to where you can add a point of contact or an email address. Now, if you're like me and you like old school pencil and paper, I actually did create a PDF that you can download and physically print out if you want to list them on paper and also list the corresponding point of contact on one sheet. Just go ahead and go to that link right there to get the free PDF. Second, for each one of the media outlets that you listed, you need to go in and figure out the best way to submit your newsworthy tip, your story idea, or your event information. And there are three ways that you could go about doing this. You can go to the news outlet's website and look at the list of reporters or journalists that work there. And essentially what you would do is just pick the one that best fits the industry that you're working within or the type of information that you're trying to submit. And so what I mean by that is, let's say that you work for a healthcare organization and you guys are going to be presenting or putting on a health fair for the local community. And so you are sending them information to get out there to have residents come and participate. You would go to the website and look for which reporter is assigned to healthcare. Another thing that you can do is you can actually reach out to a reporter that maybe you know or you have a personal connection to, or if they are known in your local community for running a particular type of story. So for example, we have one reporter here in Charleston that does a lot of the investigative journalism.
Heaven help you if you were one of the bad guys. If Harv had concerns about a story, he went straight to the source.
Is there anybody we can talk to?
So if you had something that was like a hot take, or if you had been done wrong by a local business and you wanted to reach out to them, then that would be the guy that you contact, right? Because he's known for putting those type of stories out there. Every reporter or journalist will typically have an email address listed and associated with them, and they stay on top of their emails for the most part. So as long as you pick one that is the right fit for the type of information you're sending in, then that's a pretty good way to go about doing that. Another option is to navigate or find their submit a tip page. Almost every newspaper and or television station has one of these. Let me show you what that looks like. Basically, I navigate to their website, I find their menu, I scroll down, and there's the page. You may be wondering if you're going to get the same attention because you're not emailing somebody directly, and the answer to that is yes, you will. They have people on the other end of this generic email or in the press room that is looking at these ideas and the information that is coming in. And if it is something that they are interested in running or publicizing, then they will assign it to a reporter. And so if this is the only way that you can connect with them, I still highly recommend that you do it. I can tell you that I personally have used this avenue to submit information, and almost every single time I've actually had them contact me about getting some type of free PR. And lastly, this option is a little newer, but almost every single journalist and reporter nowadays has a Facebook page or an Instagram page that is their professional dedicated page for them. Okay, so they're out there, and you guys have seen this on Instagram. You have a local TV reporter that is out there, reporting on the news, and they have a whole Instagram page where they go and they upload clips or they tell you what stories they're currently working on. It also helps them to build those connections because it makes them seem way more personable and accessible, and it works like a charm. So I'm going to give you a perfect example of how a local reporter just did this 2 days ago via a Facebook group. He actually went in there, and in a local community Facebook group, he posted this right here. If you want to take this avenue instead, then I highly recommend that you either post, tag them, or send them a direct message and get in touch with them to let them know that you have something that may be newsworthy that they want to report on. Remember how at the beginning of this video I mentioned that these local news reporters and journalists are chomping at the bit to print, air, or share your information? Well, that's because the way we consume information and news has changed drastically over the years, and that means our expectations of how we receive this information has changed as well. And so therefore the way they report on this information has changed. So let me see if I could sum it up for you in 90 seconds. Back in the day, news was dripped out through very specific channels: print, radio, television, at very specific times. Think 5 p.m. Friday evening news, or a printed newspaper that was printed every Wednesday, which gave reporters a cadence and schedule to work on news stories. It also gave them lead time. The shift to digital opened up opportunities for people to get their news from social media, apps, and websites, meaning that these lead times have gotten a lot shorter and are practically non-existent because we live in a 24/7 news cycle. Think about it. You follow news stations and publications that are bringing you the most up-to-date breaking information. So there is no reason for you to pick up a paper on a Wednesday if you've already read all about it and gotten the entire scoop on Monday from Facebook. Meaning that the reporters and journalists that are working for these news media outlets are consistently searching for newsworthy stories to share with their audience because of that 24/7 news cycle. And so what happens on a slow day where they don't have any big headlining story? The show must go on. They have a community, followers, and an audience that they have to stay top of mind with and continue to engage with, which means that they are more willing now more than ever before to share local community events and information because they have to fill those gaps within that 24/7 news cycle. So like I said, they love when you send information in. By sharing your newsworthy tip, your event, or your information, you are allowing them to stay relevant because they are sharing something that is happening within the community locally. It helps them, it makes their job a little easier if they have stories that they can pull from. All of this should be music to your ears because that means it increases the chances of you getting free PR for your small business. So let's jump back to step number 3 in how to physically reach out to these local media outlets. And this one is in regards to formatting. So you want to be super aware and be very cognizant of how you package your information and send it into these news stations. Now, back in the day, and this is where things are just different now, but back in the day, back in 2018, I actually did a 3-part series on press releases because that is the main avenue for you to send your information, or the main format for you to send your information to the media outlets. And I still highly recommend this if you have the time to sit down and do that. Now, I know that as a small business owner, you may be thinking, I have no interest in figuring out how to format something into a press release and how to send it on its way. And that is okay, because what I recommend now is, especially if you are submitting something through that submit a tip page, or if you are sending an email to a reporter directly, just be sure that you have all of the components there. You want to be sure that you have very clear communication on what your event is, what your newsworthy tip is, or what your story idea is about. Be sure that it is relevant to something that is currently going on, or explain to them why this is something that your community would want to know about. All of the information that they need in order to make a good decision about whether or not to run with your idea. You remember back in school when they taught us the who, what, where, when, and why. Be sure that you include all of that, and don't forget to include your point of contact, or whoever your point of contact is going to be for interviewing, because if you tee it up correctly, they are going to reach out and they'll either want to get a quote, interview you, or ask for some follow-up information. And so just be sure that you tell them exactly how best to reach you, leave a cell phone number, an email address, and don't be afraid to include pictures. So if you are sending in information about an event that just happened, let's say your grand opening, include photos in there. Most the submit a tip pages will have an upload function so that you can upload a photo or two. A headshot is also great to include if, let's say, you're a insurance agency and you just welcomed a new agent on board, or you work for a real estate firm and you guys have just hired someone, a real estate agent, to join your team, then a headshot would definitely be something that I would recommend including. Now, I'm not going to age myself, but I have been doing this for quite some time, so I do have some tips on how you can stand out and get the attention of these local news media outlets and increase your probability to getting some of that free PR. Tip number 1, forget about self-promotion. Yes, we all know that that is the whole point of free PR, is to promote your small business. However, you have to look at it from the perspective of the reporter or the journalist. You have to help them with their job, right? And so if essentially you are just pitching to them or suggesting to them one big ad, they're going to send you straight to their sales department and they're going to tell you to pay for an ad, because you're not helping them with their mission of actually sharing relevant information with the community. So if you angle your information to be something of interest to the community or something that benefits the community, you have a much higher probability of getting your event, your information, or your tip actually picked up. So what exactly might they deem newsworthy? Well, think about personal interest stories. So if you have something that is unique or different that happened to you or that happened in your small business that would be of interest or be heartwarming to the community, then that's something that you could pitch. So for example, a lot of the healthcare organizations do this whenever, let's say, they have a patient that survived a heart attack and then they come back and they're reunited with the ER personnel that saved their lives over 20 years ago. If you have a family-owned business and you guys have been in business for over 25 years and now you're handing down the reins, then that could potentially be a story that the local media may want to cover, because there's some type of shift or movement going on with a local business that has been in the area for a very long time. Anything that is relevant to the greater community is also helpful. So for example, let's say that you are opening a brick and mortar business, like a local boutique. That is something that people would definitely want to know about. There's a new business in the area. Here's the date that it opens, and this is the type of products or services that it's offering. Or let's say your small business hits a milestone. You just had your 500th customer, or you've been in business for 5 years now, and so you just want to thank the community or revisit, remind them that you are still there and super active. Another really great one is if you donate to a local nonprofit organization. If your small business cut a check for $2,500 to a local nonprofit, that is something that the media wants to know about. And as a bonus, that's great free PR for the nonprofit organization that could potentially increase awareness and can encourage others to donate to that organization as well. As I mentioned earlier, if you are expanding your team and you're bringing new people on board, I wouldn't say to send in, if you hired a new cashier or something, but let's say that you hire a new C-suite. CEO, COO, CFO, those are all great things. Vice presidents. If, let's say, you have a new team member, real estate agent, insurance agent, new program director, all of those are really great fits for, let's say, a local or regional business journal. And listen, if you have an idea of something that you want to reach out to a local news media outlet about, but you're not sure if it's exactly newsworthy, just go ahead and drop it down in the comments below and I'll respond back and I'll let you know if it's something that I would send in to a news reporter or journalist. Number 2, write the news tip or press release as you would want to see it published. Now, this is a big tip for me because every single time that I send information into a local media news outlet, I basically write it the way I want to see it in the publication, because more often than not, if I write it really, really well, they don't touch it. They don't add to it. They basically will just copy and paste what I've already written and maybe change a sentence, if that. If you have really great writing skills, if you provide all of the information up front, and you make their lives easier, you make their job easier, I promise you it will benefit you, because then you get to craft the message and the story and they will basically just take it and run with it. Now, everything that you say in there has to be factual and you should provide information that backs it up. So if you are claiming something, be sure that you are writing where the source material is for it, so that way they can go back and fact check it. And if you are interested in learning how to write press releases, then I do recommend that you go check out this video right here, because I do walk you through the entire format and also a step-by-step process on how you can learn to really exercise that muscle. Tip number 3, don't leave them guessing. This one is an extension of the one I just previously mentioned, but my point here is, let's say you don't care to format your information to just tee it up so they can copy and paste it and print it the way you send it in, then I do recommend that you at least be sure that you include all of the relevant information. Remember who, what, where, when, and why, and contact information. So don't make them have to do all of this research. Remember, you are reaching out to them and pitching them an idea, pitching them your news and your information. You want that free publicity. So package it up and have it all there, so that way it's low-hanging fruit for them. Because if it's a slow news day, or if it's something that they are genuinely interested in printing or running with, the easier you make it for them, the more they're going to want to pick it up, right? So if it's something that's going to take them a while to piece together, it may decrease your probability of actually getting free PR. And I know that sounds a little depressing. We would like to think that that's not how things are run right now, but it just is. Remember, they have a 24/7 news cycle, and they are pressured to get information out there and to have stuff to publish. The quicker and the easier you can make that on them, the higher your probability is to actually getting your information included. And tip number 4, be ready. If you are sending information in, always go into it with the idea that somebody may potentially contact you to get more information so that they can run the story. And so if that's the case, you have to be willing to have cameras or have a reporter come out and sit down and talk to you about it. or you have to be willing to at least maybe give an interview via telephone. The last thing that you want to do is to send information in, give them your cell phone number, and then you are just nowhere to be found, or you tell them, yeah, I really can't do an interview for another 2 weeks. That's not going to work for them. So if you reach out, be sure that you are willing to show up and to do whatever follow-up is needed. Hey, if you're growing SOB, small loan business, then stick around and watch this next video right here.